Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Grandmaster Knockout. In the left corner, the one, the only, Carlsen. And his opponent, ladies and gentlemen, Niemann. Tonight, one board, 64 squares. Playing white, Carlsen. Playing black, Niemann. Gentlemen, let the battle begin. Carlsen, pawn to e4. Niemann, pawn to a 5. Carlsen, knight to f3. Niemann, knight to c6. Carlsen, bishop to c4. Niemann, knight to f6. Carlsen, pawn to d3. Niemann, bishop to c5. Carlsen, castles kingside. Niemann, castles kingside. Carlsen, pawn to h3. Niemann, pawn to d6. Carlsen, pawn to c3. Niemann, pawn to a 5. Carlsen, rook to e1. Niemann, bishop to a 7. Carlsen, knight to bd2. Niemann, knight to e7. Carlsen, knight to f1. Niemann, knight to g6. Carlsen, bishop to b3. Niemann, pawn to c6. Carlsen, pawn to d4. Niemann, pawn to d5. Carlsen, bishop to g5. Niemann, pawn to h6. Carlsen, bishop takes f6. Niemann, queen takes f6. Carlsen, pawn takes d5. Niemann, pawn takes d4. Carlsen, pawn takes d4. Niemann, knight to f4. Carlsen, pawn takes c6. Niemann, pawn takes c6. Carlsen, knight to g3. Niemann, bishop to e6. Carlsen, knight to e4. Niemann, queen to d8. Carlsen, rook to c1. Niemann, bishop takes b3. Carlsen, queen takes b3. Niemann, rook to b8. Carlsen, queen to e3. Niemann, knight to e6. Carlsen, pawn to b3. Niemann, pawn to a4. Carlsen, rook takes c6. Niemann, knight takes d4. Carlsen, rook to d6. Niemann, knight takes f3, check. Carlsen, queen takes f3. Niemann, queen to a 5. Carlsen, rook to ed1. Niemann, pawn takes b3. Carlsen, pawn takes b3. Niemann, rook to b8. Carlsen, rook to d7. Niemann, bishop to b8. Carlsen, pawn to g3. Niemann, queen to e5. Carlsen, knight to d6. Niemann, bishop takes d6. Carlsen, rook takes d6. Niemann, rook to b8. Carlsen, king to g2. Niemann, rook to b4. Carlsen, rook to d8. Niemann, queen to e4. Carlsen, queen takes a 4. Niemann, rook takes a 4. Carlsen, king to f3. Niemann, rook to b4. Carlsen, rook takes f8, check. Niemann, king takes f8. Carlsen, rook to d3. Niemann, king to a7. Carlsen, king to e3. Niemann, pawn to f5. Carlsen, king to d2. Niemann, rook to b8. Carlsen, king to c3. Niemann, rook to c8, check. Carlsen, king to b2. Niemann, rook to b8. Carlsen, rook to d4. Niemann, king to e6. Carlsen, pawn to b4. Niemann, pawn to g5. Carlsen, king to c3. Niemann, pawn to h5. Carlsen, pawn to h4. Niemann, pawn to g4. Carlsen, king to c4. Niemann, king to a5. Carlsen, rook to f4. Niemann, rook to c8, check. Carlsen, king to b5. Niemann, rook to c3. Carlsen, king to b6. Niemann, rook to c1. Carlsen, pawn to b5. Niemann, rook to e1. Carlsen, king to c7. Niemann, rook to c1, check. Carlsen, king to b7. Niemann, rook to b1. Carlsen, pawn to b6. Niemann, rook to b2. Carlsen, king to c7. Niemann, rook to c2, check. Carlsen, king to b8. Niemann, rook to b2. Carlsen, pawn to b7. Niemann, king to a6. Carlsen, king to c7. Niemann, rook to c2, check. Carlsen, king to b6. Niemann, rook to b2, check. Carlsen, king to c6. Carlsen lands the knockout. Niemann has no answer. If you love this fight, smash that like button and subscribe. More legendary battles are coming your way. See you in the next one.